I think everyone knows how manipulative Call of Duty's skill-based matchmaking is, but what if I told you there was a way to make it do exactly what you wanted? Well, that's actually what we're going to be discussing today. To start things off, we're going to be taking a look at a video titled, "I spent 7 days trying to break skill-based matchmaking in Call of Duty. Here's what happened." And this video is by Caffrey, which of course will be linked down below, so please feel free to go check that out if you want to see the video in its entirety without me pausing it, because I promise you, I'm going to pause it in this video so that I can discuss what's going on and maybe hopefully share some information. So that's the goal, is actually to share more information than what this guy's got. And let's go ahead and dive in.
At this point, everyone knows there's something going on under the hood when it comes to matchmaking in multiplayer games, especially Call of Duty.
First of all, we have a clickbait video back here. This looks like this is from Infinite Warfare and kind of looks like maybe like a Drifter video, which is funny because we have a Drifter video here. Chain feeds right here says skill-based matchmaking ruined Call of Duty, and Games XBL said skill-based matchmaking ruined Call of Duty. Now, I do want to be very clear. We do not have skill alone based matchmaking, and I think that there's a lot of miscommunication on that because we had thought for years that it was skill-based matchmaking. That is not actually what we have. What we have is something called engagement optimized matchmaking, technically, which is under patent by EA, meaning that Call of Duty doesn't use that exact thing, but they do use something similar where it's all focused on engagement and keeping the player on the game as long as physically possible to ensure that they will spend more money, because the idea is that the longer you play, the more likely you are to feel like you have spent enough time on this to spend, I don't know, a little bit of money. So we have that. Now, it's a little more complicated than you realize and is incredibly manipulative, but I want to be very clear about that up front because there's so many people that don't understand that, and the more that we can spread the word on that, the more likely we are to change up that matchmaking system and allow it to be fully ping-based, because if you didn't know, the top 1% and like the average player would basically never run into each other in that case. You could not do VPN lobbies. You could not do two-boxing. Things like that just wouldn't happen. And I firmly believe that that would be a great world. But regardless, let's go ahead and keep going.
Finally moved on from talking about skill-based matchmaking, and people seem to have figured out that it's a bit more complicated than that. Rather, the game tries to put you in matches that it thinks will lead to desired
hot damn
outcomes and keep you playing the game longer.
Sorry.
And it's all based on studies, internal data, and now they collect data on your playtime, when you get off, and what keeps you on longer. And this led me to a...
Now, to be clear, I don't know if I can find the videos, but there have been some content creators as of late. Let's call it exclusive. Okay, how do I find the exclusive ace? There have been some creators lately that have found what they've been doing. And it looks like there's like a skill rating behind the scene. Yeah. So Exclusive Ace, I think, was the first one to make a video on this. But basically what they do is they will allow you now, because of, from what I understand, a lawsuit, they allow you to go in and see all the data that's taken on you, right? So you can download all this data, including your hidden skill rating, and you can see how it affects who you play against, basically. Or at least if you record yourself and timestamp stuff, then it'll make it easy to figure out who you're playing against and how hard these lobbies are. So there's a ton of information that they take on you, and now you can actually get that information, or you could before they've hidden it again, which is crazy to me that they've kind of messed things up because so many people wanted to know this information. But I highly recommend, if you get a chance, to go check out this video by Exclusive Ace, because the amount of information is boggling that they take on you. It is not just what this guy said. It is so much more information. And another creator that did a great video on it was Nero Cinema. He's done a few videos on it, and I think that's pretty much as far as I'd go whenever it comes to those videos, because a lot of these people that talk about stuff don't tend to do their research on what each thing does. So Nero and Exclusive Ace did some very good videos on that.
Crazy idea on how I might actually be able to break the system, or at least control it. One day while scrolling through Instagram, it occurred to me, if Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and all of these social media sites give you more of what you engage with and what keeps you on the platform, then you have some control. If you see things you don't like on the platform, just close the app and signal to it that if it shows you more of this garbage, you're getting off. Then I thought, wait a minute, what if I can do the same thing with Call of Duty? So
Well, it's funny. That's kind of exactly how it works. In Call of Duty, they don't really count up like your skill and change it dynamically based on your skill and how well you do. They do it based on how often you leave. So they look at your player data and they figure out your skill, right? That's what they do, is they figure out your actual skill. And then they'll put you into lobbies based on your skill. And you may think, oh, the worse I do, well, maybe they throw me into worse lobbies. Not only would you have to do that for basically 10 hours of just like reverse boosting and playing like absolute garbage, but even then, if they recognize that you're playing for a very long time in these high skill lobbies, they're going to keep you on there. So in most cases, the thing that will actually get them to change the lobbies that you play in is you just backing out and getting offline, or just backing out of every game that is super difficult. That is the exact thing that will get them to change stuff. And we've seen this time and time again. In fact, I think, if I'm not wrong, Nero Cinema's video actually showcases that when he hopped in and he did testing and he was backing out, it might have been exclusive aces, but they were doing some testing in Black Ops 6, and what they found is that it didn't matter if they were doing better or worse. It came down to the fact that they were backing out of matches, and then all of a sudden you saw that skill rating dip super hard to where they were putting you in easier matches. So it all came down to that specifically. Now, I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but one thing that I always try and explain is that when it comes to engagement optimized matchmaking, the reason that this is worse than, say, an algorithm of you watching videos, don't get me wrong, they're both there to waste your time, right? An algorithm on TikTok, on YouTube, you watching my 45-minute videos, it's all kind of built to waste your time and keep you on a platform. The issue with Call of Duty is that it's not about ads. You're not watching an ad. It's about keeping you on a game by producing specific outcomes, which means when you go in and you're thinking you're playing a competitive game, guess what? You're playing what they want you to play. And that's the problem with the current matchmaking system, is that it's built to give you lobbies that they want you to have, that they think is going to keep you on, that will get you to spend money. It's not about watching ads. It's not about just keeping you on the platform. It's about getting you to spend that money by giving you specific outcomes whenever you think that you're actually out here doing like work on these guys. But in reality, Call of Duty just gave you an easy game so that you'd feel good about yourself. It's all about that participation trophy, which is exactly what we're seeing. Instead of kill death ratio, it's the elimination death ratio. It's absurd how much they do to make players feel better than they actually are.
Spent the next 7 days playing Call of Duty, where each day I would play the game, and if it started giving me a high ping, bad connection, sweaty games, or bad teammates, I would just get off. In this video, I'm going to be going through my experience and clips from each day, and I'm going to see if I can actually be able to influence the matchmaking algorithm. All right, so day one, first match, I got thrown into a game that was already halfway over.
I'm backing out.
The enemy team was absolutely crushing us. We were spawn trapped. I stayed for a little bit to see if I could fight back and maybe get some momentum, but they just had us spawn trapped really well and just kept killing me and the entire team. So after a few minutes, I decided to just back out. I figured we'll give it another rip. That was just a game in progress. Let's see what we get. So game two, I also got thrown into a match in progress, which I suppose is my punishment from playing solo, but the score was pretty even at 20-20, and it was early on, so I decided to stick it out and see how it went. Started off okay, getting a few kills and a little momentum, but then all of a sudden, it just felt like every enemy knew where I was at all times. It felt like I was getting deleted instantly, and the enemies were just bullet sponges. I tried to stick it out again to get something going, partially because I don't want anyone to tell me I have a skill issue, but to be honest, I'm kind of tired, so...
No, I want to take a second to look at a couple of things. I've let it play for a minute, but the thing that I want to take a look at is first what weapon he's using, right? He's using an SMG. Now, even in multiplayer, SMGs still have a very short range. It's like 12 meters of being good. And a lot of these shots that he's been taking, and I'll even show you, we go back a little bit to like, let's say, I don't know, maybe right here.
Stick it out and see how it went.
Obviously, this is in the close range. He gets the elimination.
Getting a few kills and a little momentum.
And then he starts shooting long range, all of a sudden, and it's a little bit harder. It takes a few more bullets. I'm sorry, I'm going to mute him for a second. And that's a pretty close range kill. He gets on this vehicle, and then all of a sudden, people are bullet sponges. The next thing is that he is on mouse and keyboard. And if you don't know, the way that aim assist works in this game is actually super funky, at least whenever it comes to the way that it interacts with the server. And it's technically on the client side, right? You are the client. Your console is the client. And then you have a server where everybody's information gets compiled together and then sent back out to each person. Your ping makes a big difference here. So if your ping is like a 5, then you get the information much quicker than everybody else. But that doesn't necessarily mean mean anything because there's also something called lag compensation. So with aim assist, basically what it does is it recognizes the server data better than you can see it on your screen. So your client is recognizing the data coming to you. So while you're on mouse and keyboard, you don't have that same like pull on the player because it'll see kind of where that player is on the server and it'll pull towards that. But your mouse and keyboard just can't do that. On top of that, aim assist activates instantly like that, super fast. But when you're on mouse and keyboard, you have to have a natural reaction time. So you won't get that automatic pull for tracking. So all the way around, if you're playing mouse and keyboard in Call of Duty, you're a psychopath. I want to be very clear. And take this from someone who used to play mouse and keyboard as their main. You're crazy because you are fighting against people that have legal aimbot, realistically. Now, to be clear, I understand most of you are going to say, my aim assist doesn't work like that. You don't know how to use aim assist. It's fine. It's completely fine. That's okay. We have great videos on the channel. There's lots of people that explain this. I recommend looking up a guy named Hecksmith, HECKSMITH on Twitter or x.com or whatever you call it. That guy has great content showcasing to you how to use and how to maximize your aim assist. And a lot of it just comes down to movement, just making sure that you're moving just a hair. But I just want to be very clear. It is crazy. So when this guy right here, when he's fighting these guys at a distance, he's likely to be not hitting shots that most controller players are going to be hitting. And even on controller, a lot of these guys do tend to miss their shots when they're making videos about this. But there's just a little bit of disconnect. And I just want to be very clear about that up front. Now, the next thing is I also want to say, if you feel like you learned anything from this video, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. I try not to ask too often, but I think today's the day. Either way, let's keep going.
Tried to stick it out through it. Now, I don't know if there was that bug where the bus doesn't render in, and so you can just see through it, or if he was just flat out cheating, but either way, I'm not staying in that lobby.
I would say on
to the next day. Day 2.
Nice. Okay, so right there, we have our second back out.
First game on, didn't feel too sweaty. We got into Holiday Nuketown again, but to be honest, it just felt like an average lobby. A few good players, a few average players, and a few bad players. How every match should be. But for some reason, the packet burst and stuttering in this match was terrible. I think I died a few times just from the stuttering. And of course, because I'm solo, I'm always joining into a match in progress, especially on my first game. But at the end of the match, I ended up with over a 2 KD, which is about where I'd put myself on a normal day when the servers work.
Before we go any further, it's going to be kind of hard to see, but up in the top left, you can see that this guy's latency is 35, okay? 35 ping. Now, if you're anywhere near a server, like if you are in the East Coast, you are in Texas, or you are in the West Coast of America, if you're not smack dab in the center of America, like upper center, really, then you should be on below 20 ping. As long as you have fiber internet. Now, a lot of people don't have fiber internet, but this guy's a gamer. This is what he does, bro. So my guess is that he has that fiber internet, and he's probably relatively close to one of these locations, as most people that do this as a job tend to be. Or I don't even know if this is this guy's job, but most people that are really good or make content tend to do stuff like that. He is on 35 ping. Why in the hell would you be on 35 ping? Now, the thing is Call of Duty always says ping is king, but I want you to also know that Call of Duty thinks that 180 milliseconds of ping is where things degrade. If you've ever played on anything above 70 ping, you know that that is a crock of shit. Because anything above 70, stuff starts feeling a little bit wonky. Your shots don't hit the same. You'll aim where a person's supposed to be, like you're trying to lead a shot, and it will not hit the way that it would if you're on 14 ping or 11 ping. It doesn't work the same way. So for Call of Duty to sit here and say that, oh, ping is king whenever they're setting you up in a lobby, it's a crock of crap. It actually is anything below 200 milliseconds ping they're happy with. And that's why you will end up in games where you get this packet burst. You get these high ping lobbies whenever you're like, I don't know why I'm getting this. And that's why I'm a firm believer that, and I don't have one, but I'm a firm believer that if you want to use something like a geofence on your router where it locks you into a specific like server location, I don't see anything wrong with that because Call of Duty is manipulating the absolute piss out of us.
And I don't have to deal with insane matchmaking. Match number 2 is a completely different story. I was able to get a completely clean match, and I even got to vote on the map in the lobby. How generous of them. But I think if the game has time to piece together a lobby in the main menu, that means it's more than likely trying to optimize some type of skill level or outcome with its matchmaking.
And again, he's sitting on 41 ping.
So jumping into the match, it started off feeling terrible. First half of the game felt like every enemy was just sponging bullets and it was hard to win a gunfight. But I also had a few moments where it felt like I was getting deleted instantly. One or two of my teammates either backed out or got kicked from the match. The enemy team seemed very sweaty as well, with their top 3 all having high KDs. But what's even weirder is the second half of the game felt completely different. All of a sudden my bullets started landing, I was easily getting kills, the game started to run a bit smoother, and we went from losing to tying the game up. And somehow it got even more weird. Towards the end of the game, half of the enemy team literally left the match for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe the game started to feel awful for them, like their shots weren't connecting the way it felt for me in the first half. We did end up winning the game, but it skipped the play of the game entirely, and even though I barely peaked above a 1 KD, I was somehow the #1 player on my team. I don't know what happened, if I was supposed to big brother and carry this match or what. Definitely a weird few games, but after the second match feeling kind of sweaty and the servers just being off, I decided to close the game for the day.
I think, speaking of the big brother thing that he just said, I think one of the biggest issues that I have with the current matchmaking system is that there's this weird thing that happens that if you're casually good, you're done for. That is the biggest thing, is that if you are above average just from normally playing the game, because of the way that you think, you have the game sense because you think while you play. You don't just run into enemies and die over and over. If you are casually good, then you are at a disadvantage, because you will end up in a situation where like your whole team will get weighted against the other players, and usually you'll get put against 5-mans or 4-mans or like whole clans or something like that. And it's the goofiest thing. But the worst part is that you can't play with your friends. When I started doing this as a living, when I started like playing Call of Duty for a living, I had to stop playing with my dad. I had to stop playing games with my brother, and that my whole childhood, I grew up making like our relationship and connections like around video games, and it was really great that we got to spend time that way. We used to have like little parties where we'd get like different systems and stuff like that, and we'd play together. We'd literally 1v1 growing up and do really fun stuff, but now it's physically not possible. I remember when I first started doing this as a job, my brother would try and play Blackout with us. And then whenever Warzone came out, the skill-based matchmaking got cranked so bad that it made it impossible for us to play together. He quit Call of Duty altogether. He just came back for Black Ops 6 so that he could play zombies. He has not played anything else the entire time. And it seriously is absurd that most people think, oh, you know, big streamer wants to just stomp on bad players. That is not how it works. One, that would not happen. I would not be stomping on bad players all the time, because it would be a mixed lobby, and most likely I'd still be running into the best players in the lobby because of the way that you run into the good players more than you do the bad players, because the bad players tend to camp in corners and hide the entire time. In Warzone, at least. It's just a whole bunch of crap that people don't realize or never think about. And I just can't play with people that are IRLs, because I am naturally better than most of the players. So either they end up in, and they always end up in my lobbies. They always end up in the higher skill lobbies, which really sucks, because I, one, have to carry them or we lose, or two, they are getting absolutely pissed on, which is not fun for them. They don't want to spend the entire time getting dogged on by literal pro players 24/7. Why would they want that? So it's like, I physically cannot play with people that I love and care about in real life. Like, it's insane to me. It is absurd that we have to go through this.
And really try to signal to Call of Duty, hey, if you're not going to give me a good experience or a good server connection, and if you're going to constantly pair me up with sweaty players, I'm getting off. And I really wanted to tilt this experiment for the video in that direction to see if I could really control the outcome. On to day number 3, again, we start off on Holiday Nuketown. We join a match in progress where my team is losing. The game starts off feeling really rough with a bunch of stuttering and packet burst. Same old story so far. The enemy team had a pretty good hold on us in the spawn and made it really difficult to break through that center area because they were holding every single
I just want to know, he's a pretty good mouse and keyboard player. Like, it takes a lot to get to this level. This is not what all mouse and keyboard players look like. In fact, the vast majority of mouse and keyboard players are hot ass. This guy's got pretty good aim, and I respect the hell out of it.
Angle. I tried to find a gap, break through into their building, but every time I tried, they just killed me quickly. Later in the match, I started hitting more shots, and I did find my groove a little bit. I managed to rack up a few kills and break through the center into their building, and we even managed to take the B flag a few times, but it wasn't enough to come back for how much we were losing. All in all, I ended up with just short of a 2 KD.
Oh, he furfed himself so hard right here.
Not too bad. Let's roll it to the next game. For the second match, I removed Nuketown from the playlist.
Oh no, and it's just like the worst map.
And I only searched for Domination just to give it some variety. It put me into Derelict, which I normally just back out
Domination is a sweaty mode. Hold on, let me just see. Yeah, okay, 1080p. Domination is a pretty sweaty mode, just to be clear.
Right away, but decided to stick in it for the video. This game was a totally different story.
Yeah.
Right away, the game felt different. No stuttering, less packet burst, and it felt like my shots were actually connecting. It started getting a little bit weird in the middle of the match, but it's possible I was just pushing way too hard and getting killed. We did, however, end up steamrolling this team so hard that half the enemy team just backed out towards the end of the game. It was just a waiting game for the match to end and get the win. I finished this game just short of a 3 KD. Well, in the spirit of this video, I can't get off now. I have to reward the algorithm.
Here's the next thing. Bad players don't back out. I know this sounds crazy, but bad players don't quit. It just doesn't happen. If you've ever watched one of those like freaking YouTubers, those absolute goofballs that hop in and they drop the, I got 7 nukes in 1 game of Black Ops 6. I'm the best in the world. What a bunch of losers. But if you ever watch those guys and you see like the 2-box lobbies that they get into, nobody quits. They are getting destroyed, like so fried that it's absurd. Not one of them ever quits. I'm telling you, like, these guys don't back out. So seeing that this guy is still getting people that backed out shows me that he's still playing against better players.
And tell it that if it gives me more games like this, I'll stick around and play. Next match, we're playing Domination on Protocol, and I start off
53 ping, by the way.
Really well, picking up a decent amount of kills and gaining a ton of momentum as we clearly have control over the map and are leading by a lot in the score. Then it starts to get weird. Now, this could be totally random or it could be intentional, but one of the enemy teammates either backs out or gets disconnected, and the spot gets filled with this guy, Izeps. I don't know how to pronounce that. Now, he's either
I just played against this guy the other day.
a really good player or just cheating, which at this point I almost can't tell the difference. But I didn't want to spend too much time trying to sniff it out because it doesn't really matter for this experiment. But it's almost like
okay, immediately I can tell you he's not cheating. You want to know how I know he's not cheating? Watch it what he does. Watch. This is him right here. Slides down,
doesn't really
stands up,
this
jumps backwards, all in one fell swoop. This guy is just a demon.
But it's almost like he was gifted or placed onto the enemy team to come in and quote unquote save.
No. Okay, it doesn't work that way. Call of Duty doesn't go, you know what, these guys need some help. Let me pull this guy in. No, Call of Duty's just filling a spot because well, all right, technically, if you want to look at it that way, it could actually be looked at that way. But what's happening is that these guys are getting steamrolled. And that means that the players on the other team are doing really well. This guy is looking for a game. He's a very good player. There's an open slot on a team that's getting slammed. So they're going to give the one good player to a team that's getting absolutely slammed while the other team has all good players. So it's kind of like the exact thing where he is trying to big brother his team. Now the other guy has to big brother his team. That's exactly what it is. And it's all because they were, sorry, I'm dying. It's all because the exact same thing on the other side where this guy is just getting into lobbies that are high tier. That's all that it comes down to.
Save the day because they were just getting crushed, and he definitely delivered. They ended up coming back and winning.
But I don't think it's Call of Duty being like, let's try and save this. That is not what it is. Like, obviously you can look at it that way, but that specifically is not actually what was happening
in the game. But what was weird is that he was nowhere to be found on the scoreboard at the end of the match. Make of that what you will.
What is going on with my audio?
Hello? I just thought it was strange.
Hello? Are we good? Are we okay?
But overall, that game started off good and got really rough in the second half, so this is where I decided to call it for the day. Day number 4 continues to get weird. Again, it threw me into a match in progress that was already halfway over, and it's red card. So
Is he like only playing 3 games per day and then just hopping off? Because I don't think that's enough information for Call of Duty to quite figure this out. Or is he just playing a crap load of games and he's showing us the ones that he wants us to see? Because that's kind of what's confusing me here. Like, I don't think Call of Duty is getting enough information that he doesn't like it. He should be jumping into a game, backing out, jumping in, backing out, jumping in, backing out, jumping in, backing out, jumping in, backing out, and does that like 40 times. And then they'll get enough information where it's like, okay, maybe we don't give this dude a lobby like this. Like, that would work, but I don't think they're getting enough information to really put it together.
I'm just gonna nope out of that game, instant back out. Next, I finally get into a fresh game on Rewind.
Packet burst.
Game starts out okay, pick up a quiet few early kills. These players are shooting back at me, but they aren't sliding around the map, pre-fire in every corner, and they don't laser me. That's in the first half. Then the second half starts to get weird again. First of all, these guys become demons and started hitting every shot. Second of all, I'm going to show the clips on screen right now, but I'm fairly certain this guy was either cheating or turned on his cheats because he was always tracking me through walls and knew exactly where I was. And I checked, there were not UAVs up during the...
Hold on. This could just be like a kill cam bug, but if we watch this right here,
checked.
I'm going to go playback speed 0.25, and then we're going to zoom. Watch this little wiggle at the end of it.
Not
Centered, and then he hooks straight to chest, or hooks straight to like center body, right? Once again, this guy's looking top left. Watch what he does.
Check. There were not...
Zooms in top left. The second he hits the character, the exact instant he hits the character, hooks straight to the right, starts tracking perfectly. He hooked past the guy, came back, and is now hitting center chest. My guess is that guy is cheating, but there's no way to know because of how buggy these kill cams are. It could have just been he was already aimed at that and Call of Duty just decided to throw the guy looking in a completely random direction, or it could be that that was accurate. There's literally no way to know because Call of Duty is so at making kill cams and spectating. And my guess is because they don't want us to know whether or not someone's actually cheating, which is stupid. Oh my God, it's so frustrating. It's crazy that in Verdansk, whenever they didn't know that cheaters was going to go crazy, the kill cams actually worked pretty well. But now that they know that cheaters are wild and rampant out there, all of a sudden we can't spectate the people that killed us. The kill cams don't work. Half the time, like, you can't even tell if someone's even aiming at you. There's no information whenever it comes to audio. Like, nothing works.
UAVs up during this moment, and even if there were, you would probably just kind of pre-aim where I was going to pop out. You wouldn't track me through a wall the way that he was. Again,
all right, he got some fat ass feet though, so let's just double check here and see.
let me know the count.
No, he's cheating. He's cheating. This guy's cheating. This guy right here, you boy lazy, he's cheating. 100p. You see exactly what it did right there? We're gonna just double check. I just want to be very clear. He starts at the top left, hooks straight down to center mass. He didn't go for a chest shot. He hooked straight down to the center mass again. Good calls by this guy. Incredible. Now, I can only be 99% sure or even 80% sure, but from what we can see on our end, that would be my guess.
Guy. Then literally over half of their team backed out.
Oh, he froze it. I
Towards
thought
the
my
end
thing
of the
froze.
match, for some reason. Overall, ended up with a 2.15 KD, which is okay, not great. The next game, I get thrown into a domination match on Lowtown, which
He's got a guy named Tempest, Clapped, West Right 51, Stam, Reapers, Realm, Billy Kimba. Now, another thing that I'm going to kind of point out here, which a lot of people don't think about, is look at the names of the people on the other team. Most of the time, if you aren't seeing numbers, these players are decent. Because most of the people that don't put numbers in their name, or most people that are good, don't want numbers in their name. They want people just to like see their name and say it. Why would I want to... Why would I want Expel 436 in my name? Like, no one wants to look up Expel 436. They just want to look up Expel, right? So people that want to be somebody, like they're, you know, they are wannabes. Like, they will not put numbers in their name in 99% of scenarios.
which again is already halfway over, but we're actually winning, so whatever, I'll stick it out.
It is a weird connection to make. I realize, I know that somebody's going to get in the comments and be like, numbers in the name mean nothing. Well, yeah, sure. Some of the time it means nothing. But the issue is when you're someone like me that has put 10,000 plus hours into Call of Duty, you start recognizing patterns. And the first pattern that I can tell you up front is that people without numbers in their name are likely to be better. That's just a fact of life.
Out and play it. This was the worst lobby I've played in since the game on Nuketown, with constant stuttering, packet burst, and for some reason I'm getting 40 frames less than every other map.
It's saying packet burst, but he's getting no packet loss. His ping's 50.
I don't know if you can see the stuttering as much as I can feel it, because I'm playing at 144 FPS and I record at 60. Honestly,
I seriously, I don't want to like look this guy up or be weird or anything, but I'm seriously curious if whether or not he is just like mid United States, because I don't know if it's possible to see it on his page, or it just says United States and then Caffrey.io. What does this go? Gaming, YouTube, Kick, Instagram. I'm just like interrogating this guy. I feel like close. Caffrey DJ. It literally doesn't say on his thing. He doesn't tell anybody where he's at, which I mean, probably a better idea. But good. Okay, Instagram, we're done. We're done. Instagram. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm very appreciative of you asking me to do something 87 times. But anyway, my curiosity is whether or not he's in the middle of the U.S., like middle top, like North Dakota or some crazy stuff, because it makes no sense to me that he's getting 50, 40, 35, 40 ping every game.
just a terrible game experience all around, but at this point, I'm just going to stick it out and see how the game goes. Nothing particularly weird happened in this game. The enemy team did seem pretty good, but for some reason, they just didn't have any interest in playing the objective. This was my worst game of the night.
That would mean they're probably better, because most players that are better want to go for as many eliminations as they possibly can.
Ending with a 1.82 KD, but it felt a lot worse than that. I'm not sure if it was because I was constantly stuttering and getting hit with the packet burst.
All right, first of all, again, look at how your players are playing. That guy right there that you just fought. Let's check and see what he does right here. Let's put the playback speed to 0.5.
Constantly
He's going to slide out. He slides out. Now, he did slide too far, but that's because of Black Ops movement. This is basically something this guy's memorized from previous Call of Duties, because what you could do is you could fully cancel your slides. You can't do that in Black Ops 6. You cannot full cancel your slides whenever you want. In this, you're forced to slide out. So he slides out, stops, starts walking backwards, and jumps. Immediately, you can tell that these guys are pretty freaking decent.
Packet burst, and it always seemed to happen during a gunfight. Nevertheless, we're not really getting into easy or quote-unquote bot lobbies, at least not yet. So again, I decided to call it a night, to tell the algorithm, hey, if you give me these types of games, I'm not playing. And between you and me, I'm definitely not spending any money. On to day number 5. So we're back on this map for some reason. I don't know why it keeps putting me on this map, but I'm glad it gave me a fresh game instead of one in progress this time. So shout out matchmaking. The game. Also,
if I'm not wrong, if you back out of pretty much every game in progress that you get, I'm pretty sure this is what I have found just from like casual testing. I have found that if I back out of every match in progress, it starts giving me like regular matches. That, or it throws me in the exact same match on repeat. Those are the only two options. They're like, you're either taking this match or no match. Those are the only two options.
Game started out a little weird, and I thought we were going to have another game with a cheater, but it turns out that he was just kind of hitting his shots.
Bro,
I took a lot
nasty.
of unnecessary deaths in the first part of the game, but once I was able to wrap my brain around how they were playing, I ended up just running through the entire team for the rest of the match. We were able to hold them in a...
See, that's a good player. I love that. He's like, once I figured out how they were playing, and that's kind of the one thing that separates a lot of different players whenever it comes to skill, is whether or not you can adapt while you're in the middle of the game. If you're playing multiplayer, I don't know about you, I hate multiplayer. I hate it with such a passion, because I feel like most of it is just you and your team just full sprinting at another team, and it's just not fun. I hate the sound of dying more than anything on the planet, and hearing that sound, the chung chung, every time, I'm trying not to lose my mind. But listening to this guy say I figured out how they were playing, I love hearing people say their brains are working. That makes me so happy. And I bet this guy would be pretty dang good at Warzone too.
a really bad spawn trap, and I was able to go 54 and 12 for a solid 4.5
Damn.
KD. I ended up dropping 2 Hellstorm missiles and 2
So bro got slammed for just a minute and then realized that other guy was just playing a very specific way, and if he could catch that guy off guard, then he could kill him every single time.
Bombs, which was nice for a change. Now this is the type of game we've been looking for. These players aren't bots by any means. They are shooting back sometimes, killing me if I do something stupid or, you know, run in there like a chicken with its head cut off, but they also don't feel like they're aimbot snapping to me every.
I see, I kind of disagree with that. In this case, I don't think he's really done anything to it. I think he just had a good game. Like, I don't think this was engagement optimized matchmaking being like, here's you a bone. I think he just had a really good game. And I think that was because of what he said earlier, which was, I figured out how they were playing, switched it up, and then I started doing well. It's exactly that. That's all that it is.
Every single time. And even though the server started out with some packet bursts and stutters, it kind of smoothed out relatively quickly. All in all, solid match. So we're going to keep going. Game 2 for day 5.
I wish it would show kills. This is actually the most depressing thing on the face of the planet, that Call of Duty Black Ops doesn't show kills. It only shows objective. I'm so sick of this, dude. This freaking participation trophy bullshit, bro. It is so mind-boggling. There's some things that you're never going to hear me say in a video, but just know there's some stuff I hate about Activision, and that mindset is just the freaking tip of the iceberg.
We're on Skyline, which is a map I feel like I rarely play anymore, partially because anytime there's a Nuketown or Hacienda 24/7 playlist, I always run those because those are the only 2 good maps in this game, but Skyline's okay, I guess. Now, the question is, am I going to get punished for playing well in the last match? Well, spoiler alert, kind of. You guys can be the judge here, but I would say this enemy team was average to slightly above average. I was struggling with the SMG early on, and I just couldn't find a way to hold center on them. Part of the problem with a lot of these maps is you can just get shot from too many different directions, and they did a really good job of always running through the kitchen and stopping us from pushing through or holding it. Oftentimes, I would just barely make it to their home flag and get shot.
Oh man, I love listening to him just break down his freaking gameplay. This is so nice.
Multiple people spawning in, which fair enough. I did, however, swap back to the Krig, and I ended up being able to flank through the tunnel under the map and hold them in their spawn, picking off a decent number of kills by kind of shooting them in the back, to be honest. These guys were definitely not stupid, though, and I was never able to hold a spot down for too long before they would just start sending to me. Overall, we ended up winning the game, but who cares about that, right? It's all about KD and Call of Duty. I ended up with a disappointing 1.68, which...
Oh, by the way, elimination death ratio. It's 47 eliminations, which means... Oh, I hate it.
Probably could have been better if
because this is how they get away with it, right? They want you to think that you did better than you did, because basically everyone was getting to the point where they were sitting right around a 0.8 to a 1. Like that was what it was. And it started becoming very obvious that skill base or engagement optimized matchmaking was playing a huge role in the outcome of your matches. But now if you're getting like 47 eliminations, then it looks a lot better because you're just tapping people that your teammates are actually eliminating. God, it's just, oh, I hate all this scummy shit that they've been doing, bro.
I didn't play so aggressive early on. Nobody really had too crazy of a KD in this lobby, and there was one guy in the enemy team that peaked above it too. But to be honest, this felt like a pretty competitively balanced match. But this video isn't about having a balanced match.
Damn.
We're trying to see if we can tell the algorithm to give me games like that first one. So again, we're calling it after game 2. On to day 6, first game on again, puts me into a lobby.
Again, I don't even think you necessarily have to go offline. Because if he plays 2 games and he goes offline, like, Call of Duty is not getting that information. I think he has to hop in and just back out of games he doesn't like, and then hop in and back out on games he doesn't like on repeat, basically.
Where the game is more than halfway over and my team is losing, so I just back out right away. I have no idea what this game's fetish is with putting solo players into games that are already lost. I know the lobbies need to be filled when players leave, but why is it always my first game on? Second game, we get into Hacienda, which is a breath of fresh air, arguably the best map in the game. The enemy team was not playing around. They were holding all the angles, playing the objective, and they really didn't miss shots. I did manage to break through the line they were holding through the center and solo cap their home flag once or twice, but he's
just playing too damn long in these lobbies. I'm telling you, I think this testing needs to be done again. on a completely different like setup. Like I think if he wants to do this again, I think he backs out of every lobby that's hard.
I'm pretty quick. For some reason, my teammates seemed allergic to the objective, but what else is new in Call of Duty? You would think by now the matchmaking algorithm would have learned its lesson and started putting me into easier lobbies, but maybe this is starting to look like a failed experiment.
You've played like 12 games, 13, 14 games, 14 games in 6 days. And you, like, it's not gonna do it.
The first match was by far one of the worst connections I've had all week, with constant packet bursts, stuttering that seemed to just happen every time I got into a gunfight. I finished this game with a little over a 1 KD, and to be honest,
damn,
I forgot to check
stacked?
because I was so intent on spamming the respawn button to run straight back to their C flag, but it was like a 1.1, 1.2, nothing crazy. Match 2 ended up being even sweatier and even worse connection experience than the last one.
Yeah, he's just playing this thing out. He's not even...
He's gonna win players back. They really got to get this packet burst and stuttering under control because it gives me a headache and makes the game a chore to play. The enemy team was also quite a bit better than the team in the last game. They never missed a shot.
Bro,
always ready for me.
Especially on freaking mouse and keyboard. This poor guy, bro. He's hopping in. He's got no aim assist, and he's like got a guy in front of him, and then all of a sudden the guy's over here. He can't adjust for that. You physically, you'd be shooting at some guy that's like basically in one specific spot, and then you don't have the opportunity to adjust to where they're actually at because of this crappy packet burst.
They played the objective really well. For some reason, I would just get deleted instantly when an enemy showed up on my screen, but when I watched the kill cam, they always seem to have plenty of time to round the corner and line up their shot.
Yeah, that could specifically be lag compensation as well. A lot of this is just like really crappy servers, and we've talked about this to the longest extent of anything else, is how terrible their servers are and just how lazy like Activision is whenever it comes to wanting to get things done. It's laziness and greed. Those are the two things that have been the downfall of Call of Duty lately. But the servers are probably the issue across the board here.
Is this bad? Then the whole game is chalked. But what made this game even more weird is that towards the end of the game, the entire enemy team just left except for one person. I don't know.
Oh yeah, but so again, good players. They're going to lose. They know they're going to lose. They don't want to be forced to sit through the end screen. No one wants to be forced to sit there for a minute and a half while the game finishes when you can leave and it takes like 8 seconds for you to hop into the next game. It's just a waste of time. I fully 100% respect the hell out of that. If your team's going to lose, don't stick through until it loses. Just back out. Hit the road. Who cares? What? Are you going to upset the other team? No. They're used to it by now. We're all used to it. Call of Duty's ass, and they make you sit through stuff just to make you sit through stuff. It makes zero sense. I don't know if it's a problem with like their netcode and like you have to stick around because if we're doing these kill games for you, then you need to see it. This play of the game, I know it made no sense, but you gotta see it. Like, it's goofy.
If it's because they knew they lost or they just didn't want to stick around for the end of the game winner circle or what.
Yeah,
but back-to-back sweaty games in a row, that's where we're going to call.
By the way, 27 ping, but hella packet loss. I don't get it.
On night 6. Hopefully it gets a little bit better tomorrow. All right, so here we are, day 7, the last day of the experiment. Did Call of Duty finally start making some changes to my matchmaking? I'll give you a little spoiler. Kind of.
No.
Game 1, joined into a match in progress. No surprise there. But my team was winning, so I figured, why not stick it out and see what happens? It's also on the map Extraction, so why not for a little bit of variety? And boy, am I glad I stayed in this lobby.
You know what he should have done, man? He should have done this and then literally went and checked his skill rating. I think that would have been the best way to figure this out.
This is not a bot lobby, but it's pretty close. I was easily able to just have my way with this enemy team, especially once I figured out where they like to sit in the back of the map. Now, they still shot at me and they killed me a few times, but it was not hard for me to get enough kills to run through my streaks. I was also able to just stand out in the open and ego challenge them for no reason half the time. Honestly,
I think that being a mouse and keyboard player forces you to be smart. Like, if you are going to be a good mouse and keyboard player, and I think this is probably why I IGL for my team all the time, is because when I played on mouse and keyboard, it forced me to think differently. I didn't have that free aimbot whenever I ran into a room, right? I didn't have that aim assist to just lock onto an enemy as long as I was moving and they were moving. No, I had to think about my positioning 24/7. If I was in a bad spot, I would never get the first shot. And let me explain first. Like when you hop in, like I said earlier, and you have aim assist, that aim assist pulls 0 millisecond delay. But when you are on mouse and keyboard, you have a 200-ish millisecond delay for your reaction time. That is just what it is to be human. So if you want to pop off and do well, then you have to start playing differently. You have to focus on positioning, rotations, things like that. And this is obviously Warzone information, but the same thing goes for multiplayer. Like right here, if you look at what he's doing, he's playing incredibly smart. He's standing right where there's a perfect head glitch. And the guy he just killed just ran out full body from behind a bush. These guys are so used to having something that just tosses them a W. And I'm sorry, I know that it's frustrating to hear me talk smack about controller. I play on controller. That's what I do now. And I want you to know, sometimes people toss a smoke and I forget how to aim. I'm going to give it to you straight. Sometimes a smoke pops up and your boy's sitting there like, was that me? I aim like that? That's on me, dog? Oh God, I didn't even get better. I thought I was getting better this whole time. Nope, I'm still ass, buddy. I'm still ass. So whenever I watch mouse and keyboard players and I realize like they make much smarter plays in a lot of scenarios, and they're forced, if they want to get good, not to focus on their aim, but to focus on their positioning, their rotations, and just make sure that they are catching their enemy off guard rather than their enemy and them running up to each other in a perfect 1v1. Because if a mouse and keyboard player and a controller player run up against each other in a perfect 1v1, 9 times out of 10, the controller player wins because of that initial aim assist, because it's going to pull a little bit to hit that center. You know, it's going to try and drag as long as you're within their like little circle. Now, a mouse and keyboard player can flick to you faster, but that's why centering matters a lot. If you center where the chest is naturally going to be, you should be able to get a pretty easy kill if you're using controller. And this is what I talk about a lot in my spectating videos. So make sure to check that out if you're trying to improve. Either way, just got excited.
I don't like this map. I kind of had fun playing it like this. Most importantly, we finished the game 21-5 with a 4.2, aka 420 blaze it. Just kidding. Well, I did have a 4.2, but scratch that joke. My bad.
Sorry,
but
brother. What?
One game in progress doesn't really say much. So what about game 2? Game 2, we get into a fresh match, thankfully, and on rewind.
All right, this guy's got ass internet. Like, is that what it is? Is it the servers or is it this man's ass internet? Because he's had above 30 ping pretty much every game, and he gets packet burst every game. I think you need to get exit lag. I am not sponsored by them anymore. They don't. I swear to God, I've tried to get them to talk to me. They don't even talk to me anymore. I don't know if y'all just didn't download the thing, but such is life. Listen, I use this software called Exit Lag, and what it does is it clears up my trace route, like my connection to the server. And it, basically, when you are... This is not an ad, which really sucks because it's a banger ad. But when you are connecting to a server, there's a bunch of different like servers that your ISP uses to bounce to that server. So this is where you are. It bounces to, let's say, the Houston server, and then it'll bounce to the Arizona server. And then for some reason, it'll bounce to Dallas, right? Because why would it not go Houston, Dallas, right? But if you use something like Exit Lag, then you can literally bounce to Houston and then directly to Dallas, because it recognizes what it's doing and it force routes your connection that way to however the fastest connection is. So it gets rid of that buffer and it helps with your packet burst and stuff like that. I've been using it for like a year now, and I really love it. But they won't set up another sponsor video. So maybe we didn't do so well on selling it. So damn, but oh well. Such is life.
This map is always hit or miss for me depending on how the enemy team decides to play it. If they're good enough to just hold down all the sightlines and pin us down into the spawn, it's kind of game over. But that wasn't the case. These players seemed relatively decent at shooting, but they didn't quite have the map awareness to be ready for me in most of the situations. I was able to catch them off guard and take a good amount of them out pretty easily throughout the match. For me, this match felt more like what organic matchmaking used to feel like. A good mix of players in the game, a few good, few average, few bad. You know, how it's supposed to be.
See, the issue is that this doesn't actually account for team balancing. So what a lot of games do is that they'll do fully ping-based matchmaking, and then they'll just do team balancing, where it recognizes the teams, and then it'll try to balance the players on each side. And it works really well whenever it's completely random players. But when it's full 6-man squads, it's basically a pub stomping opportunity, which I think is kind of hilarious, to be quite honest. But that's kind of the issue here, is that this guy doesn't really recognize And this is nothing against him. It just, there's a lot of variables that are hard to account for when you do something like this. But he's not recognizing that team balancing actually is just balancing out the teams pretty decently in this game. So
I was able to roll through my streaks once on this map, which is, you know, in Black Ops 6, pretty solid considering how crazy the lobbies can get with engagement or skill-based matchmaking. I also noticed that I had no stuttering and no packet burst issues after the first few seconds, so that's good. Overall, finishing with 37 kills and 10 deaths for a 3.7 KD. So far, it's going good, and it's feeling like the matchmaking is kind of realizing that I don't want to be put into crazy lobbies or I'm getting off. So I have to reward the algorithm and keep playing, right? On to game.
So again, I think if he would have done it a different way, he probably would have had a better opportunity. I might leave a comment
back on Skyline. I still don't understand why people like this map so much. I mean, it's okay. It's not great. Now, my latency was pretty solid at around 29, but this match so far might be the worst when it comes to packet burst and the little stutters that just pop up throughout the match. I don't know if it's on purpose or if it's just an issue, and I honestly would have thought that Black Ops 6, losing almost half its player base, that the servers would have less load on them.
Oh, I'm an absolute moron. Sorry, Call of Duty doesn't track your server connection. They don't track how shit their servers are. It is not a thing that they do. They don't care what kind of servers they put you in. That's the issue, is they really don't recognize it unless people are really whining about it on like Twitter or something like that. They don't really care. That does not affect the way that you get into a lobby. So if you back out because of bad connection, they're not going to recognize it was because bad connection. They're just going to recognize like how you did and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. I just like, it never connected that's what he's been saying this whole time, but that is not a thing from what I understand.
And this issue might just go away on its own, but that doesn't seem to be the case. This was also the most sweaty lobby I got into on this day, and it seems to be in line with the trend of recent performance. As I kept playing good, it kept giving me more skilled players to match with, or at least that's what it felt like. This team was really well coordinated, holding down all the lanes and sight lines and being really difficult to pick off. I finally found some success running through the tunnel underneath the map again to catch them off guard. I was able to take a few of them out of their spawn and then climb up on the top of the roof, shoot the guys in the back that were looking over the B flag, but it was never quite enough for my teammates to capitalize on and grab the B flag for long enough to end up winning. Of the 3 games, this was by far my worst performance yet, and we did end up barely losing. Overall, I ended up with 51 kills, 28 deaths for a 1.82 KD this game.
Again, not 51 kills, 51 eliminations.
Not great in my opinion, but not as bad as it could have been. So what is the conclusion of all of this? Towards the end, I do feel like I started to see a small but consistent dip in the lobby skill level. I can't tell if it was real or just placebo because I kind of want this last week.
Yeah, that's the issue, is that I think it was most likely placebo because he's running against the exact same skilled players. These are the same skilled play. Like if I go and I look at this,
tell if it was real or just placebo because I kind
of... Okay, hold on. Sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I was
real
trying to...
or just...
This guy, run forward. As soon as he sees him, he jumps back. And of course he dies, but he did react as soon as he had the ability to react. That was a quick reaction time, right? This guy right here that he just killed. So if you go back and you look at the beginning of the video, these players are the exact same. They have the exact same skill rating, right? So when you look at that, you can recognize it, or at least I can from the outside looking in. It would feel good to know that if I force it, then you can change it. But in reality, I don't think he's doing enough to actually change it. There was a guy way back in Modern Warfare 2019 that what he'd do is he tried his ass off to see if he could break skill-based matchmaking. He basically did this, but to a way higher level. He would hop on and he would go in, see how hard the lobby was, and he would play it out. When he finished the game, he would base the amount of time that he plays on that game. So he hops in, he has an easy lobby, he plays more. Hops in, has an easy lobby, plays more. Hops in, has a hard lobby, hops off a line, doesn't hop back on for 2 days. Then the next time he does it again. He does the exact same thing. Easy lobby, stay. Hard lobby, leave. Easy lobby, stay. Hard lobby, leave. And he did that over and over, but every time he'd leave and go offline, the second he got that hard game, he would go off for a longer amount of time. So the first time, call it 1 day off. The next time, 2 days, 4 days, 8 days. Like he started extending the amount of time that he was offline to the point to where he didn't play for up to a month. And from what I understand, those had the best results that I've seen, where it just started giving him easier lobbies because they wanted him to play. And it didn't start giving hard lobbies for much longer periods of time whenever he got online. So I think that was a great test. I think this, as much as I do want to give him props, this is like one of those things where it's like he would probably have played more, but instead he chose not to. If he wants to do this test again, I am a firm believer that he should just go ahead and start quitting more.
Last week to be worth it. It could also be totally subjective because one night I might have just been more on my game than the other nights.
Yeah.
But let's assume we did see a tiny trend in the skill of my lobbies going down. That begs the question, if this really is engagement optimized matchmaking, why didn't we see a more drastic change? Well, there are 3 possibilities. Number 1, I didn't run this experiment for long enough to start significantly altering my matchmaking, especially considering the fact that Call of Duty has my entire history to go off. So maybe the algorithm just chalked it up to a bad week, or the data from this 7 days was so small in comparison to the rest of my play sessions that it didn't heavily alter the matchmaking. So maybe if I do this again in the future, I should start with a fresh account or do it for 30 days and see if that changes it. Possibility number 2, there just aren't any casual players left in the game at the time that I did this experiment. With the game losing approximately 40% of its players at the time of recording, maybe the only players left are just relatively good players. So there were no quote unquote bots to match me with, which
the issue with that is that the people that stick around are the people that are bad. And don't get me wrong, you do get a lot of like hard lobbies, but the issue is if you pay attention, at least in Warzone, you'll see that the people that you're running against are actually the same people over and over and over. And the reason why is because the player pool is much smaller. The people on Steam are usually the better players, which is why when we go by the Steam numbers and we see that they've lost 50% of their player pool, it's like, well, the good players left. The bad players tend to stick around, which is why when we don't have the ability to look at console, then we can't actually tell the number of players that have left. There's literally no way that 50% of the players have left. And I know that we love to throw that number out. It is in no way accurate. Like, not at all. The likelihood of someone on Steam, on PC, that has a billion games at their disposal and it probably plays a bunch of, especially on Steam. For the love of God, Steam, the people that play Steam games have a library of 467 games. These dudes will hop around to freaking any game, right? I know a lot of people that play like that. So don't take the numbers from Steam and assume they mean something. But the big thing is the players that are leaving are the hard players, the very talented players, the ones that are really good at the game, because they're just good at games. The people that are sticking around are actually the bad players. The dudes this guy run into, he probably is running into similar people or a smaller player pool, while he's not ever getting thrown into those easier lobbies. It really comes down to the fact that there just genuinely was not enough data for them to pull and decide, you know what, he's not good anymore. Because it all comes down to your skill rating and whether or not you like it, and this, that, and the other thing is a whole thing.
I don't fully believe, but it's a possibility, so I wanted to just throw it out there. Possibility number 3, the game puts a heavy emphasis on skill and recent performance. As much as we assume it's engagement optimized.
No. It is not recent performance, because then every 5 games guaranteed you would, because they have said in the past that it's like something like 5 games they evaluate. And when I say they, I mean like Drifter, like people that did these testings way back in Modern Warfare 19, like the people, like the content creators that were doing these tests, they said that it seemed like they were doing it based off of 5 games, right? That is not the case. As you can see from his video proved the exact opposite of what he's saying right now. I want to be very clear about that.
Which I definitely still do. It's possible that due to recent performance being a significant factor in the matchmaking, I would still have games where I would go north of 2 or 3 and sometimes even a 4 KD. The matchmaking just decided to up my skill rating and throw me right back into the match.
The issue is he's playing no different, right? He's playing no different, but he's also not backing out enough. So if you look at this guy and you pay attention to how he's playing, he's still egoing the exact same way. He's still putting himself in head glitches the exact same way. He's still running around the map the exact same amount. They are taking data on all of the stuff you do, how much you play the objective, how many eliminations you get, how many headshots you get, where you're shooting at on the body, how, like, every single thing that you could think that your player does, they have the information on that, and they base your skill rating on that specifically. So by that, if you look at how he played the entire time, not one goddamn day did he change the way he played. Not one day did he leave enough time to give them enough data. He played like 12 games throughout this whole thing, or like 15 games or something like that. I play 15 games in a day, bro. In a day, and that's Warzone. Those suckers are like 20 minutes long sometimes. This is not enough data. it simply is not enough data. And if you get thrown a bone in the middle of it, you were meant to get thrown a bone in the middle of it. It has nothing to do with anything else. That's the only issue
I was trying to escape from. And if that's the case,
and to be clear, he's just saying this is an option. I just want to let y'all know that is not what happens.
It may not actually be possible to bend the algorithm or train it towards a new preference, because the second you start performing well, it's going to kick you right back into the high skill lobbies for one of two reasons. First, maybe it thinks that after you played well in one lobby, you need a proper challenge to be fully engaged. Or two, maybe if you played too well, it's not so much that it's trying to change your matchmaking to engage you, but to actually remove you because you are too skilled and protect a certain group of players from getting stomped because they might quit playing the game. Ultimately, I think the best...
So I wonder if I can find this, but Call of Duty matchmaking. Call of Duty said this thing, and this is basically the last thing I'm going to say. The video, by the way, incredible job on putting this data together, but there should be something. Did not hire? Yeah, so I don't know where it's at, but there's somewhere where Call of Duty basically said that whenever we did skill testing, hold on, testing. Whenever we did skill test, I can't find it here, but whenever they basically turned off skill-based matchmaking, what would happen is they noticed that certain players would not return at a higher rate. And people took that to assume that it meant that they returned at a lower rate whenever they loosened the matchmaking parameters and focused solely on ping. That's not what they said. Call of Duty has a way of saying very specific things to ensure that people think one thing, but that's not actually what they're saying. Call of Duty said players did not return at a higher rate, but they also didn't say that the players returned at a lower rate. The thing is Call of Duty's goal with all of this, with the matchmaking system in its entirety, is that they want people to spend money. This is quite obvious. The longer you engage with a product, the more likely you are to spend money on the product. It's just human nature. I don't know why, but that's how we are. So they want people to stick around longer. So if they're not staying around longer than normal, than it would be with or without, then that's not okay for them. They want to make sure that people are spending more money, and they've noticed that engagement optimized matchmaking will talk people into spending more money. So in my personal opinion, I would love to see that they loosen this up. And I think we're a few years away from that exactly. In fact, I have a tweet recently that did pretty well, and I'll show it to you here. This will probably be the last thing that I say, but I said in my tweet, Call of Duty's skill-based and engagement-optimized matchmaking systems only work when people don't know they exist. People are finally starting to understand the extent that the current system manipulates them, and I firmly believe this is part of the reason we're seeing so many people leave right now. Yeah, there's a ton of problems across the board, especially not having an anti-cheat, but knowing the game itself is trying to force an outcome for the player defeats the purpose of playing entirely, especially in a competitive game. Like, that's stupid. Save skill ratings for ranked, okay? That's skill, rank, duh. I think we're only a few years away from even the casual players realizing, because you and I, we're not casual. We watch YouTube videos and stuff like that. Casual players from realizing this and turning to other games, leading to an even larger drop off in the player base that we're already seeing. Players don't want to be manipulated, and definitely not point blank lied to. The time is coming where Activision is forced to understand that. And when I say players don't want to be manipulated, I think that's the most important piece, is that people always ask me, Expel, what do you mean by it only works if people don't know it exists? Well, if people realize that they're being manipulated, they want out of the situation. There's not, I can't name a single situation, and I'm sure someone in the comments is going to get a big old wiener and be like, I can name 16 of them, but I can't think of one situation where as a human, I'm out here like, man, I'd love to be manipulated. That'd be the best thing on the planet. Let me get manipulated. Somebody manipulate me. That would feel so good. No. None of us want to be lied to. None of us want to be manipulated. That's just how we are. So once we know that we're being manipulated, that's when things take a turn. And that's when people start trying to break out of that box. We've been seeing lately, and take this as you will, obviously to each their own, but we've been seeing lately that the silent majority have been standing up for what they believe in. And I think that that kind of stuff is going to start breaking into every category of our lives, including video games, especially video games, because so many people use that as their pastime now. So just a thought, just a big, long 1 hour long video where I stretched an 18-minute video and couldn't shut up. I get it. I understand. But if you made it this far, subscribe, because you obviously like listening to my dumbass yap. And more than that, thank you for watching this through. Obviously, you can just go watch this guy's video if you want to take it in its entirety by yourself. That is always an option. I don't want to keep people from watching those videos. And that's why I share so much extra info, is because I'm happy if you want to watch that video as a video, but my goal is to add commentary to said video and as much information as I physically can to ensure that you learn something more than you would if you were to just watch that video. But either way, thank y'all so much for watching. I hope everybody has an incredible remainder of their day. And no, this does not mean reaction videos are coming back in full force, but whenever I see something important, I love to talk about it. Thanks so much. Get out of here, you cutie patootie. You been working on that booty?